Hello, Josie Wales here. Welcome to this combat mission final Blitzkrieg after action report. This was a head-to-head battle against Nathangun from the Few Good Men forums. The scenario is chaos at Ferme Diedenhove, where Nathangun is playing as the German attackers and I am playing as the US defenders. It is the 17th of December 1944. The map is orientated so that the view is looking towards the east, with the north on the left hand side of the map and the south on the right hand side of the map. My mission is to defend the following objectives from an imminent German attack. Towards the northeast corner of the map we have Ferme Diedenhove, which is worth 200 points. Centre right is the T-junction objective, also worth 200 points. To the south on my right flank is Grange du Cheval, worth 100 points. Ferme Diedenhove is a ring of farm buildings enclosed by a high wall. The T-junction encompasses the church, which is the largest structure on the map. And the Grange du Cheval objective consists of a barn and some paddock. In addition to securing these objectives, a whopping 850 points will be awarded for destroying German armour. Intelligence reports confirm a full-scale German attack into this sector of the Ardennes. The precise makeup of the enemy is sketchy, but reports suggest enemy units include King Tigers and infantry. Once again, I have a mixed bag of US units consisting of armour, parachute infantry, armoured infantry and engineers. From the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, I have A Company consisting of 1st Platoon on the right, 2nd Platoon forward on the left and 3rd Platoon on the T-junction objective. From the 41st Armoured Infantry Regiment, I have 3rd Platoon of B Company on the Ferme Diedenhove objective and 3 57mm anti-tank guns. From the 1st Armoured Infantry's HQ Company, I have 1 platoon of 81mm mortars mounted in half-tracks. I have 2 platoons of self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, 1st platoon on the left and 3rd platoon in the centre and on the right. I have 1 platoon of engineers from the Engineer Battalion. The 67th Armoured Regiment are providing 2 platoons of Shermans from A Company, supplemented by a flamethrower tank platoon. I also have 3 forward observer teams and 4 7-ton supply trucks containing extra munitions. Reinforcements include a platoon of M36 tank destroyers with their Greyhound Scout section, a platoon of M24 Chaffies, additional armoured infantry and a P-47D fighter bomber. Off-map artillery consists of a battery of 6 priests with their 105mm howitzers. The terrain is a mix of open fields and dense coniferous forest. A couple of hamlets and a few rural buildings dot the landscape. The church on the T-junction objective gives excellent observation out to the east and southeast, but as usual it will likely attract enemy fire. Just south of Ferme Diedenhove is a large hill which will give my opponent excellent observation into both the T-junction and Grange du Cheval objectives. Ferme Diedenhove itself provides poor observation in all directions, but does provide good cover and concealment. The church on the T-junction also provides good cover with its heavy stone build and surrounding perimeter wall. The vast woodland in the northern half of the map provides excellent concealment. A boggy stream running east to west through it may immobilise vehicles which try to cross it. A smaller but still significant woodland runs along the southern edge of the map. These wooded areas will slow down vehicle movement but won't prevent it. Fishing ponds around Grange du Cheval are obstacles to both vehicle and infantry. Patches of mud are located all over the map and may immobilise wheeled and tracked vehicles alike. I have identified 3 pieces of key terrain on this map. KT1 is the church on the T-junction objective, as it provides excellent cover and good observation out to the east. KT2 is the hill to the south of Ferme Diedenhove. If my opponent gains possession of this hill, he will have an excellent fire support position to cover any assault onto Grange du Cheval and the T-junction. KT3 is the area of woodland between Ferme Diedenhove and the T-junction. I will need to hold this to ensure I can support both of these high value objectives. I have identified the following avenues of approach for my opponent. His infantry are likely to move through the woods to threaten Ferme Diedenhove on the left and Grange du Cheval on the right. The armour is likely to move up the reverse slopes of KT2, where it can provide a base of fire from hull down positions to support the infantry. This would also allow further encroachment by his infantry into my right flank. His infantry on my left has several options open to it and may decide to push into KT3 and then push in towards the T-junction objective in a pincer attack. Or he may decide to go for a deep envelopment and threaten my rear wood positions. Based on this, the plan is to hold Ferme Diedenhove, the T-junction and key terrain 3, whilst denying Grange du Cheval and key terrain 2 to my opponent. The first order of business is to get 2nd Platoon of A Company of the 506 into a battle line. One of the AT guns and several Shermans have been positioned to cover KT2. Minefields and barbed wire fences have been constructed on the far right and left flanks. The time is 10:15 hours and I have 1 hour and 10 minutes to complete the mission. Conditions are clear, freezing, light snow and wind is gentle from the west. On the left, the paratroops of A Company 2nd Platoon get into a battle line with one of the Shermans and one of the self-propelled anti-aircraft guns in support. Near Ferme Diedenhove, an assault tank from A Company spots German paratroops approaching from the northeast. The assault tank's 105mm gun is taken out. As it pulls back to Ferme Diedenhove, 3rd Platoon of B Company of the Armoured Infantry grab as many supplies as they can to prepare for the oncoming onslaught. As the Fallschirmjäger advance, a 3-man machine gun team from 2nd Platoon pull back from their OP into the woods. Panzer IV is spotted near to the infantry contacts. As it's apparent that German infantry and armour are approaching Ferme Diedenhove, additional armour from the rear is manoeuvred to reinforce the objective. The Shermans of A Company and the Engineer Support Unit form up on the north side of the objective. An armoured infantry squad from 3rd Platoon move into the woods to support them. A Panther is spotted next to the Panzer IV. Both are supporting the Fallschirmjäger as they manoeuvre into the woods. The 2nd Panzer IV is spotted nearby on the road. As 2nd Platoon of A Company of the 506 form their line, German mortars start to land. An engineer squad helps support the paratroopers. At the rear, engineers of 3rd Platoon A Company move to reinforce KT3 in the centre. Just southeast of Ferme Diedenhove, a single barn on KT2 allows observation out to the southeast. A support half-track breaks the cover of the woods to scout out the barn. As the scout reaches the barn, he spots a reconnaissance half-track to the east, just metres away. To the south, he spots a Puma sporting a 50mm gun. second Puma is spotted moving up from the southeast towards Ferme. One of the Shermans of A Company moved to counter. Having done his job, the scout pulls back to report. The contact report is passed back to the half-track and the nearby Sherman crew, which uses the info to get the jump on the German scouting force. An Easy 8 moves from its rearward position towards KT2 to help engage the German scout force. With the scout force taken care of, the tanks pull back off of KT2. On the left, 2nd Platoon tried to hold off the advancing Fallschirmjäger. Despite inflicting some losses, 2nd Platoon's mounting casualties are forcing them back. Panzer IV encroaches on Ferme Diedenhove.
Everyone ready?
B Company's 3rd Platoon HQ team attempt to observe the German tank movements, but are spotted by the Panther crew. They pull back to avoid further losses, but they are unable to pass on their information to the Sherman crews. Despite this, the tanks that had gathered around Ferme advance in an attempt to disrupt the Germans from developing their impending attack. The 3 surviving Shermans pull back. At the rear, the 81mm mortar platoon relocates to more open ground to allow for a clearer field of fire. The security section of 1st Platoon B Company of the 771st Tank Destroyer Battalion arrive. Strategic Update 1. 10:32 hours, 17 minutes into battle. Zooming into the northeast corner of the map, we can get an overview of the situation that is developing around Ferme Diedenhove. 2nd Platoon of A Company of the 506 Parachute Infantry are attempting to fend off Fallschirmjäger that are approaching on this flank. To their right is a squad of engineers of 3rd Platoon of A Company of the Engineer Battalion. 3rd Platoon of B Company of the 41st Armoured Infantry have manoeuvred 2 of their squads out of the objective to help hold the woods. 3 Shermans of the 67th Armoured have pulled back behind the crest line. The recent armoured exchange here has come at a cost. 3 Shermans have been lost for the destruction of 2 Panzer IVs and potentially a damaged Panther. The 2 Shermans on the right have mauled the German scout platoon and have now pulled back from KT2. My opponent is advancing his infantry through the woods on my left flank. It is hard to gauge the size of the Fallschirmjäger force. It is at least platoon size and has accompanying 81mm mortars. His armour is making a more direct thrust towards the objective. I am assuming 1 platoon of Panzer IVs, a platoon of Panthers and a platoon of Sturmpanzers. Despite losing 2 of the Panzer IVs, that is still a lot of firepower that he is bringing to the table. I am concerned that my remaining Shermans in this area will be overwhelmed. After initial success in spotting the German scouts, an attempt to get further information on his armoured force failed. Pulling back out, the rest of the battlefield is relatively quiet. A tank and a light tank can be heard manoeuvring in the southeast woods. With the situation developing around Ferme Diedenhove, I have reconsidered the overall plan. I will withdraw from the objective together with my left flank. This should encourage my opponent to take the objective, where I will unleash the 105mm howitzers from the Priest battery to flatten the objective, delay my opponent and cause casualties. On the left, the German paratroops continue their advance as 2nd Platoon begin a tactical withdrawal. At the rear, the 81mm mortars start to help cover the withdrawal from Ferme Diedenhove. However, German armour has manoeuvred unseen into the centre. The exposed mortar platoons scatter in panic. And 2 of the mortars are saved. At Ferme Diedenhove, an engineer team arrived to blow a hole in the western wall. This will allow the vehicles on the objective to withdraw from the approaching armour. As the withdrawal begins, the Sturmpanzers start hitting the objective. Covering fire is laid down to prevent German infantry entering the objective whilst the platoon withdraws. Panther attempts to flank the objective. As the 41st pull out westwards, the Germans pour in the eastern end. The last troops pull out of Ferme Diedenhove and set up a defence from the wood line, the objective is abandoned to the encroaching German forces. Strategic Update 2, 10:42 hours, 27 minutes into battle. Again, zooming into the northeast corner of the map, we can see how the situation around Ferme Diedenhove is developing. On the far left, the 2nd Platoon of A Company have been badly mauled whilst trying to slow down the approaching Fallschirmjägers. Only a handful of them are left. To their right, 2 squads from 3rd Platoon of B Company of the 41st Armoured Infantry are supporting them, whilst the rest of the Armoured Infantry platoon have manoeuvred into the woods behind Ferme Diedenhove. One of the engineer squads have had some contact on the left, but the rest of their platoon is being kept in reserve near KT3. The 3 anti-aircraft guns on this flank have been doing a sterling job on slowing the German infantry down, both in the woods on the far left and as the enemy approached the objective. The remaining 4 Shermans on this flank have pulled back into the tree line. Fallschirmjäger continued to advance on my left flank, forcing me to pull this flank back. At the same time, a mixed bag of German armour consisting of Panthers, Panzer IVs, Jagdpanzers and Sturmpanzers, together with infantry support, have moved on Ferme Diedenhove, which I have been forced to abandon to preserve my troops and set up a defence in the tree line. I will continue to pull back my left flank to ensure a gap does not open up between my lines. From the tree line, I will attempt a harassing bombardment for maximum duration with my 105mm Priest battery onto the objective. This should deny this piece of ground to my opponent and slow any further attack. So far, I have been able to deny KT2 to my opponent. Looking at the bigger picture, 1st Platoon of A Company of the 506 Parachute Infantry still hold the woods on the right flank, and 3rd Platoon still occupy the buildings and church around the T-junction objective. I was not expecting German armour to manoeuvre into this position. From here it was able to put direct fire onto my 81mm mortar platoon. 2 of the half tracks were destroyed along with one of the mortars and the platoon HQ. However, the other two managed to dash for cover in the nick of time. More light armour contacts are heard moving on my right flank. With the abandonment of Ferme Diedenhove, it has now become necessary to alter my original plan concerning Grange de Cheval. I no longer want to simply deny this objective to my opponent, but now have to occupy and hold it. German paratroopers continue to pressure my left flank. Whilst the 2nd Platoon and the engineers continue to pull back. Number 2 AA gun continues to provide covering fire for the withdrawal. Before pulling back themselves. At the rear, 2 Jacksons arrive from 1st Platoon of B Company of the 771st Tank Destroyer Battalion. Frustratingly, one becomes bogged and then immobilised right off the bat. The second one comes under fire. At Ferme Diedenhove, the Germans continue to pound the western end of the objective. They probe around its southern flank towards KT2. The Sherman on the right flank covering the hill is taken out. Allowing more German armour to encroach onto KT2. An OP from A Company of the 506 on the far right is in the wrong place at the wrong time. The 105mm shells from the Priest battery start to fall on Ferme Diedenhove. More and more German armour is starting to establish itself on and around KT2, pushing the centre further back. Just below the hill, the Germans systematically start destroying buildings. harassing fire from the 105s continues on Ferme Diedenhove. The immobilised Sherman behind Ferme Diedenhove is racking up an impressive kill count. Within 2 minutes it has destroyed 3 Panzer IVs, 1 Jagdpanzer and 1 Flak Panzer. The top of KT2 is starting to look like a burning scrapyard. Rear, the remaining 2 Jacksons from 1st Platoon of B Company arrive, as do a platoon of Chaffies from A Company of the Combat Command Reserve. The Chaffies are quickly rushed through the northern woodland trails to the front. With the body count mounting, the twisted armour wrecks burning and the buildings being reduced to dust, that concludes part 1 of this after action report. Can I hold my opponent back, or will he break through to take other objectives? Stay tuned for part 2.